Jill Clifford. This is my husband, Mark Clifford. We're partners with Chris Kimball in Legacy Tours. We've been doing tours for over 15 years now and love traveling. And we are very excited about this opportunity to go to Turkey. We've been working with Mike Day for, I think, 3 or 4 years now and been able to travel with him to Greece, Italy, and he's taking groups to Holy Land and is a fantastic, amazing tour guide. We love working with Mike. Appreciate his expertise on biblical history, Christianity, the temple connections, and spirituality. And he's very accessible, loves questions. So it's an awesome to tour with him. Lufti Baydar is our Turkey connection. He is from Izmir. He'll talk to us in a minute. He is from Turkey, and he's helped us coordinate our trips to Greece, and now this trip to Turkey. We're very excited for his expertise. Appreciate all that he has done to make sure our groups go smoothly and helps keep us connected. And he will be our resource tonight with questions regarding traveling to Turkey, since this will be new for most of us. Mike, why don't we turn the time over to you and have you share a little bit, and then we'll have Lefty see what he wants to share, and then we'll open up for questions.
Okay. So first of all, I'm excited to go with you guys. So there's a lot going on in Turkey. Big picture, a ton of the New Testament is actually taking place in what typically in the Bible books, the scholarly books, and the Bible dictionaries, they'll call it Asia Minor. Okay, that's Turkey. So you can see Greece on the map, but you also see a ton of his visits are in Turkey. So, and it depends on who you talk to, but a lot of people say, you could argue that 2/3 or at least a half of the New Testament is taking place in Turkey, being written in Turkey, being written to the people that live there. This is the heart of Christianity, the cradle of early Christianity. So a couple of things that I'll talk about while we're there is we'll look at when we go to the site, I'll talk about, okay, here's what's happening in the Bible at this site, or here's who's there, or here's who's being addressed. In some places, and I'll make you a book. If you've been on, like, I know some of you have been with me to places where we make a book, and so you don't have to remember all this stuff and walk around and take notes. You can just listen and drink in the site and take pictures. But then when you get home and you're like, where was I on day 5? You could open the book and read about those places, and then we link it to the scriptures. So I'll tell you the stories on site, but you'll also have a book to remember. You can see Ephesus right there on the map. I've been to Ephesus before. We go there with our Greece tour. One of the cool things about Ephesus is this is the place where a lot of the early church admits, and they say, hey, this is where John lived. And John, the Apostle John, when Jesus was on the cross and he said to him of the 7 statements, one of his statements was, behold your mother. A lot of people say that's him telling John, hey, take care of my mom. And so traditionally, Mary goes to Ephesus and spends some time there, and John goes there. And a lot of people think that this is the seat of what they call the Johannine community, the place where the Gospel of John is written, the place where 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John are written. So if you've read the New Testament, there's 27 books. John, or somebody named John, and I'm just going to call it John, wrote 5 of those books. I mean, that's like 1/5 of the, bad at math. Anyway, that's about 1/5 of the New Testament. So that's a big chunk. Now, did he write Revelation there? Now, if you've been to the Greece tour, we go to Patmos, where that was probably received, but it was probably circulated around there because people say he went there after he was released from his little prison stint. My point is, Ephesus is a big deal. So I'm really excited about going there. And I have a list here. I wrote this down. About half of Acts is taking place there. And then about half of Paul's letters are written there. And then 1 Peter. And I'll give you evidence as we go through the scriptures. We'll show you in 1 Peter. Here's evidence that the people being addressed live in Turkey. And here's how we know this. So Acts chapters 13 through 21 are taking place there. Paul's going to spend, once again, 3 years in Ephesus. So that's kind of a big deal. And what else can I tell you? The 7 churches of Revelation. So another thing we're going to talk about when we go there, and I'll do as much as you guys want, but I have hours of content on the book of Revelation, different ways to read it. I'm a big symbols guy, so I like to look at the symbolic aspect, but I'm also a big historical context guy. So if you want, and it's all up to you, but we'll have optional classes where you say, okay, what did the book of Revelation say if I lived in first century Turkey? Like, what would it mean to somebody who literally read it in Greek and heard it at the synagogue or at church? And then how does it look to a Latter-day Saint? So I give different ways to look at the text. And like I said, as someone who goes is like, I guess you would call me like the tour leader, because we're going to have a local guide. As the tour leader, I'm always gauging like how nerdy to get based on the level that you guys want to talk about it. So if you guys want to go way nerdy and go all out, like when the bus stops and after we have dinner, maybe we'll talk about it. Or maybe if it's a 4-hour bus ride, because you look at some of these places, there's going to be some writing around. You can just sit and chill and listen. And the beauty is most of the stuff that I talk about, I will either reference in the book or I gave a podcast about it or whatever. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm excited about, like the 7 churches. Now, not all these places, not all these ruins are easy to see. Some of them are really cool. Some of them there's like, oh, there's a burned out hill, and we'll talk about that. What else can I tell you guys really quick? Well, it was the center of like the crossroads. You know, if you're going to Asia, if you're going to Rome, if you're going to Egypt, people are kind of coming through these areas. This is a big heart of what they call the Jewish diaspora. So there were periods of time when the Jews were getting moved around and pushed around by different groups. And so they scattered in these different communities, and they built synagogues where they would come and worship God. And so Paul would visit. Kind of Paul's MO is he'd go to the town and he'd hit up the synagogue and say, hey, I'm here to talk. I'm going to read our scripture, the Bible, what we call the Old Testament. And then he would reason with the people and say, hey, this is why I believe in Jesus. And he would make his case. And so a lot of those places are in Turkey. And this is exciting to me, and it can get a little academic. So I try to keep it like not so nerdy, but this is the beginnings of a ton of Christian history. So if you're interested, I can give you a couple books if you want to read them before you go, just to get your feet wet. I always like to start with what I call like a really easy book. So this one's really easy and it's skinny, so you don't have to like get overwhelmed. And it's not written by a Latter-day Saint, but it's called Theological Turning Points. And it's really easy to understand I'll put this in the WhatsApp, or I'll send this to Jill and she can email it out. But it's by Donald McKim. And what he writes about in this book is this is the beginnings of like Christology in the early church. And what's Christology? That's where the early church is trying to figure out, okay, who is Jesus? Is he God? Is he man? Is he half God? Is he half man? Like, what do we do with this guy? And in the first couple 300 years, they're kind of having these debates and talking about this. And these debates are happening in Turkey. And around 325-ish, a bunch of bishops get together and they basically decide, hey, this is who Jesus is. And so we'll talk about those debates. And I'm going to talk about it in a way that's faithful, but also includes, I'm not here to denigrate like the Catholic position or the Eastern Orthodox position. I want to paint like a big picture for you. But if you're a Latter-day Saint, I'm going to give you my take because I'm a Latter-day Saint, but I'm also going to present it in a way that if you bring your cousin who's a Catholic, they're not going to storm off the bus and go, Mike's crazy, I don't know what he's talking about. So I'm going to present it in a way that everybody can go, okay, that makes sense. And that's why I like this book, because it does a good job of it. And it's only 170 pages. It's not a big deal. So this is, anyway, I could talk about books all day, but I always start with that one. And then a couple other ones. I mean, this one, disregard the sticker, but this is called The Early Christian Church. This one's pretty good. And there's a ton of books about the early Christian church. And then this one's called, this is a little bit longer, but it's by J.C. Wan, called History of the Christian Church to 500 AD. So those are some of my ones that I really like. There's another one I'm trying to find it. I gave away my copy. I had a couple copies, but I'll give this to Jill, but it's called Church History in Plain Language by Shelley. One of the reasons why I like that one is because it does just what the title says. It's church history of early Christianity, but it's in plain language. You don't have to be a Bible scholar or, have a bunch of letters after your name to understand it. It's super good. So, in fact, that's probably the one I like the most. And what's sad is I have multiple copies and I keep giving them out. Another cool thing about church history in plain language is it's on Audible. So these are some things you can do if you're like, I'm going to be on a plane for 10 hours going to Turkey. You could probably listen to church history in plain language on the plane. And then when you land in Turkey, you're like, oh, I kind of know what Mike's talking about. I know what we're doing. So those are some things like to prepare. So here's what I bring to the table. Christian history, I've done some reading on that. And then New Testament stuff, I do a lot with that. And then also in grad school, we did hours and hours, semesters on translating Homer. So we're going to go to Troy. I'm so excited. Now, this may not be your thing. If you're like, I don't really care about Troy, then that's cool. But if you want to talk about some of this stuff, it's super fun because Homer's works, in my opinion, are foundational to Western thought. So I will talk about why Homer matters, but I'll try to do it in a way that's not so nerdy where you're like, I don't want to go to school. I just want to have a vacation. So hopefully I'll do that in a way that you guys are like, oh, that's awesome. And then finally, like a lot of the church history stuff of the first 500 years, I have all this stuff I can talk about, but to be brief and speaking, we'll talk about that. And like I said, Jill asked me, be brief, but talk about 3 places you're excited to go to. So here we go. I'm stoked to go to Ephesus. I've been there, but I can't wait to go. I've never been to Troy before. Discovered by Frank Calvert and this guy named Heinrich Schliemann in the 1800s. We're going to go there, and I'm so stoked because I've never been. And then I've never been to Istanbul. I've read books about it. Istanbul was Constantinople. Maybe you've heard the song, but Constantinople is the seat of really early Christian thought. And Constantine changed the way we think about Jesus, the way we think about the church, the way we think about empire and running the church. And I have all this stuff I can talk about if you want, or you'll hear me on the bus. But he literally shaped the history of how let me give you one example. So in the early church, Jesus was like a suffering servant, and they really viewed him that way. And we still do, a lot of us. But Constantine shaped the way we view Jesus to like a king, like a victor. And the portrayals, like in a lot of the churches, I hope we go to lots of these churches, but if, I've done this in Israel and in Greece, but I hope we go to some churches where you see, especially in the Greek Orthodox tradition, they call it Christ Pantocrator. He's the ruler of the universe. And you see him painted as a mighty monarch. And that really is coming out of Constantine's mindset. And so we'll see it in the architecture, we'll see it in the art. And like I said, these books will kind of help get your feet wet, but it's just so fun to be walking in history. And like I said, I'm excited about all those. But if you look at the tour, we're also going to places that like nobody gets to go to. Turkey's filled with stuff that just is mind blowing. I've had a couple of friends that have gone there and said, Mike, it's like top of my bucket list. I didn't even know it was so awesome until I went. So, and I don't want to give that away from what Lefty's going to share, because that's his wheelhouse. I'm more of like the Bible nerd, the scripture nerd. I'm obviously nerding out on Homer. I'm a huge fan. And I hope the movie that Christopher Nolan's making is good, because I'm going to be disappointed if Matt Damon doesn't do a good job of Odysseus. That's basically Troy Part 2. The Iliad is Troy, and then the Odyssey is the journey back from Troy back home to Greece. So anyway, I probably rambling. I don't know, Jill, did I kind of give an idea of like what I bring or what we're going to see?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Lefty, I'd love you to take a minute. And as I said, he's our guide from Istanbul, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Jill. So, hi, everybody. My name is Lutfi. I am from Izmir, Turkey, which is the western coast of our country, close to Ephesus. Regarding our country, Mike has said, the biblical importance, and it's been the cradle of Christianity. I'd like to give you a few information about about our country. So the country is Turkey, and we try to change it to Türkiye to make differentiation. But when you check the world map, you can see that Turkey is the most eastern country in the west, and it is the most western country in the east. Okay. So therefore, you can see the traces of east and west together when you are traveling. You can see a multicultural environment. People are nice. The food is great. You like it. The temperature is, more or less, we are on the same axis as United States. When you are on the coastline, you'll notice that the landscape and temperature is like Southern California. And when you are in the inner parts, like in Cappadocia area, you will notice that it's like Utah temperature. Okay, where you see, temperature differences between, daytime and the night. So I can say that we will be starting from Istanbul, which was Constantinople. We will see the remains from Eastern Roman Empire, and the Emperor Constantine's city, who was the first Christian emperor. And you can see even the tomb of his mother and daughter in Museo Vaticano today, because he was the first Christian emperor. And we'll continue our way going to Cappadocia, which is the place where you see lovely formations. People carved these formations, using them as homes, storage places, or churches, or making underground cities when they were hiding from persecutors. As well as the biblical part, we will also be talking about the local culture in Turkey, where the Turks are coming from. They are joining from Central Asia to the west, to Asia Minor today. And we'll also talk about Rumi when we are visiting Konya, which was Iconium during Paul's time. He was an Islamic philosopher. We'll also talk about his teachings as well. He's quite an important character in our country. We'll see Pamukkale, which is the place where we have the white travertines, similar to the ones you have in Yellowstone National Park, but ours are bigger and better. And close to that, we'll also see Laodicea, which was, the city criticized by being lukewarm. And we'll continue our way going to Ephesus, which is an incredible ancient site, one of the best preserved ancient sites all over the world. And we'll follow the coastline, going to Troy, passing Troas, and we'll be back in Istanbul. So it will be a journey to remember with memorable experiences. I'm sure those of you who will join us will like our country and the places we visit, as well as teachings by Mike Day.
Do we need to bring Turkish lira with us, or will we be able to use our US dollars?
Okay. Most of the places we visit, US dollars are accepted, and credit cards are accepted. However, when we are touring, for more than a few days, we always recommend to change a small amount of money, maybe something like $40, to have some change with you. In our country, our guide will be pointing out the places where we can have, free restrooms. Sometimes we pay for the restrooms, and having some change helps us, to have. Other than that, you don't need to bring Turkish lira, because the rate is usually better when you are in the country, and you can change a small part of money. We have hot air balloon in Cappadocia, and it is a wonderful experience. We rise up early in the morning, and we see the we call them fairy chimneys, and we take our photos, and then come back to our hotel. This is something extra. This is optional. The cost is, not cheap, to be honest. It is $300 per person, but it is a very nice experience. In Pamukkale, we have also a opportunity for hot air balloon, but the experience is not the same. The rate is usually less, but sometimes we take the one in Pamukkale as well.
And is maybe if you could talk more about that, and then what the associated cost was. And then my third question was, if I'm scared, who's going to hold my hand? Those.
Larie's got you covered.
Hot air balloon, by the way, is monitored very carefully by our aviation department. And if the weather is not permitting us to fly, the flights are canceled. The payments are done to the balloon company at the end of the flight. So that's a secure way to make sure that if the balloons do not fly, you don't need to worry about refunds.
Have to reserve like weeks ahead of time or the day of, or do they fill up?
When you are in Istanbul, our guide will ask how many would like to fly and re-inform the balloon company. Turkey is a safe country, secure country, but we ask for general taking general precautions, like we may have some pickpockets in some crowded places. We remind our guests about these small things when we need to be careful. The food is nice, as I told you before. We will try to point out places where you can have nice local food at reasonable rates, and you'll be free, to try. We have nice Turkish delights, nice baklavas. Those of you who may like some sweet things, the Turkish delights are famous. In Istanbul, especially when we visit Blue Mosque, for instance, and Hagia Sophia, we have a dress code, to enter. The ladies need to cover their heads, okay, and the gents need to be in trousers, but for those who they think the dress is not modest enough, they give you something to wrap yourself or something to cover your head free of charge. We usually say BYU dress code applies.
Also, you mentioned food. So are we going to be eating turkey, chicken?
Turkey from Turkey. That's
turkey from Turkey.
So many dad jokes. So many.
I know. Hey, wait, I've got a bunch more for the trip.
Our breakfast buffets and dinner buffets each day at the hotel, correct?
Yes. We usually have the buffets where you can have a variety of food for the breakfast and also for the dinner. In Istanbul, for instance, they give us set menu. But for those who have any food restrictions, I will collect them from Jill. Please inform Legacy Tours so we can learn them in advance for any food allergies, any restrictions, and make sure you have something suitable for you to eat.
And lunches will just have opportunities to eat from local establishments.
Yes, it is part of the cultural experience. Guide will point out you suitable places with reasonable pricing. In a few places where we are on the road, we will make some lunch stops, which will be our only option for the lunch. So when we are traveling on the road, there will be two places, for instance, that I know, 2 days, where we will need to stop for lunch, and they will have, of course, proper food suitable for everybody, all different kind of.
Is it acceptable to drink the tap water? I mean, for us.
Okay, good question. The tap water is sterilized and it is clean and safe to drink. However, in order to sterilize, it's got too much chlorine in it. Therefore, it may upset your stomach. So the tap water is safe to wash your teeth and, to use it. However, we don't recommend it for drinking. At each hotel, there will be a bottled water in your room and given free of charge. And also, our bus will have bottled water complimentary throughout the trip.
Is there an option to go single, or does it need to be all double occupancy?
We do have some singles already signed up. We also have a single female traveler that is open to a roommate. So if you're interested in getting her information, let us know.
In Troy, do they have a Trojan horse there, kind of a replica or anything we can go inside? Or
I read on the internet that they have one. I also read on the internet that there's a museum there. So having not been there, I'm hopeful that we get to go visit that.
And yes, we have the Trojan horse, which is not replica. It is the same from the Trojan War.
Oh, wow. Tom and I are going inside.
So when you go to Troy, will you be covering the discovery of Troy by Heinrich Schliemann, the German?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely talk about it a little bit, and then we'll definitely have it in the book. Typically, what you get from me is I give a longer explanation in the book, and then I talk about it on the bus, and then I look at your eyes, and if you're interested, I keep talking. And if you give me the look like we're good, then yeah.
We also have a boat ride on the Bosphorus, right, Lefty?
Good.
Yes, it will be by private boat on Bosphorus. We will see the Asian sides and European side of Istanbul. So Istanbul is the only city in the world that is located in two continents. So part of it is in Asia, part of it is in Europe. We will be staying on the European side, but we'll have a boat ride. We will see the two sides of the Bosphorus, and that will give you a better understanding about the city and also about the strategic location about our country. The bus driver will be one in Istanbul first, and then we will take a flight and we'll meet our new bus in Cappadocia, and then that bus and the driver will be ours throughout the tour.
Question about, like, maybe describe the pace that we'll be going, kind of run, or, I was asking Jill earlier today, like, hopefully a little bit of free time in the evening to kind of crash a little bit. I can't go 24/7, but
No. Lefty will respond to that about how fast paced the tour will be.
Well, we always try to be at the hotel early enough so you can have a rest before having a dinner, and then you can have dinner. So without, if you ignore the balloon ride day, we don't have, too early departures. We have time to have a proper breakfast, and our drives are not that long, so we'll make sure that we'll have a smooth, tour and smooth itinerary.
What time do you leave each morning from the hotel?
It depends on the day, but usually the departure time will be about 9 o'clock, 9-ish, let's say, sometimes 8:30, but will be 9-ish unless we have, anything special to avoid any crowds.
Passport expires on the 19th of December, and we're supposed to have a 6-month time period to get a new one.
Since it's right on that edge, you're just going to be under 6 months. just to be safe than sorry, I would say renew it. You've got time.
Question from one of our guests about Pamukkale, and I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. Are they going to be able to see the beautiful pools there when they get there? Is that going to be part of the tour?
We will get to see the white travertines. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and therefore they let us on only on a certain path on the white travertines. We will see some of the pools, but some of them may be, not where we are walking. But yes, we will there on the path. There are some nice pools that we can see. And we will have thermal water at our hotel, pool with thermal water. So those of you who want to get a little bit relaxation or want to swim in the thermal pool, they can do it at our hotel in Pamukkale.
We have 2 nights in Istanbul and 2 nights in Cappadocia. And it looks like the rest of the nights we are moving hotels every day.
Yes.
So there is time for this discussion later, but as I often recommend, traveling light is an advantage.
The hotels offer a kind of laundry and they have laundry bag. But when in our schedule, when you give them, they want to give you, later. So the laundry chance is very less.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions for Mike or for Lutfi or for me?
Do you mind if this is going to repeat? My dad left the room for just a minute when Mike was talking about like at the very beginning, the scholarly foundation that he brings in. My dad was an institute teacher for many years.
Well, I may have a small contribution here or there. I may know a little more about Heinrich Schliemann than anybody, but because I've been to the village where he was born in Germany, and German, so something like that. I wouldn't dominate, maybe I can contribute something.
I love it when people contribute what they know. It's awesome. So just so you know, like we're all in this together. Everybody has something they can contribute. Everybody has life experience that adds to our experience. So, every time I go to a place, doesn't matter if I've been once or 10 times, I'm always learning new things. It's part of the wonderful adventure we call travel. So I'm really excited.
Yeah. We still have room on this tour, don't we? So, anybody that wants to join in, or feel free to solicit a little bit.
Flights are a little tricky. Istanbul's not a place that all airlines are flying to. What I'm seeing with Delta is there's a cheaper flight that arrives in the middle of the night. So if you're thinking you'd like to do the cheaper flight and then you'd have to pay for an extra hotel room, that is something to maybe consider. Or there's a pretty decent flight that leaves the morning of the 14th and arrives in the afternoon of the 15th. So anyway, I'll be setting those details out. And of course, there are other airlines besides Delta, but those are the 2 that I'm looking at.
Another option is, for instance, I usually fly out of Denver by using Turkish Airlines. United has very nice connections to Denver, and from Denver we have a direct flight going to Istanbul, just for your information.
I like to go maybe a few days early and adjust a little bit. So I don't know if Jill's the one to text or whoever,
Yeah, definitely.
To get together. And
if you want to get the same hotel, just let me know. I already have a couple people that have told me they're coming in early. If you are comfortable making your own hotel accommodations at another place, that's fine too.
We can also handle anybody flying in different times. We can also handle arrival transfers as well.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get that. If you have questions about flights or you're ready, we'll send an email. But yeah, I will want everyone's arrival and departure information just so I can keep track of when everyone's coming and going. All right. How do you say goodbye in Turkish, Matthew?
Güle güle.
Yeah.
Güle güle. It means go with a smile. Güle güle.
Oh,
Goulet, goulet.
Goulet, todo bien
I like
ganado.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.